Hi everyone, my name is Eric, and I was the biggest sucker in my class. Yeah, that happens. People jump to conclusions about you without even trying to find out. But the point is not about them, it's about me. I'll tell you how I rubbed everybody's noses in it and proved to myself what I'm worth. A lot depends on ourselves, and that's the truth. In my school, as in all schools, there were cool kids and people like me. I had a friend named Justin. Why he was friends with me even though he was the cool type, played soccer, was the right hand of the captain. He was loved by the teachers, prophesizing a bright future. The girls licked at him like honey. Justin really was a good man, a friend. He was the reason I wasn't beaten and bullied in the bathroom like the rest of my kind. Justin was protective. In some ways, this further undermined my authority. But seriously, he was saving me, and I was only glad. Justin and I had been friends since we were young. His parents were not wealthy like mine, and then we rose dramatically in our careers, moved to a wealthy neighborhood, and stopped talking to my parents. But Justin and I carried on, and then it turned out that we got into the same school and class. At first, everyone wondered why he was friends with me. Justin always said I was his first ever best friend. That's nice. What can't be said about my classmates? On the days when Justin wasn't at school, I had a hard time getting picked on, pushed around, threw my books and notebooks out the window, at least a little. I didn't complain to my friend, just silently gathered everything up and walked back to class. One day at Andrew's classmates' party, which I went to thanks to Justin, everyone sat around and started playing a cool game. The participants spun a bottle and first named each other's positive traits, then the negative traits, and who they thought the teenager would be in the future. Justin was all predicted a posh education in a cool college, his own business, a beautiful wife, and many children. When my turn and Bonnie's classmate's turn came, she was silent for a long time and then said, "He's quiet." And of the positive qualities? Those were the positive qualities. So what are the negative ones then? He's just a loser. Everyone laughed at this word, like showing 100% that it's true. I felt bad and sad. I was down. Justin stood up for me again. "So guys, it's a level playing field. Why are you humiliating Eric so much?" "Justin, when are you going to admit that he doesn't belong among us? That's his superfluous here, and he's only here because of his connections. I mean you. We have a question. Why did you go after him so much? And why do you want him? Tell us, is he your half-brother? Or does he do something special for you?" The guys laughed again after she said that. Justin freaked out, stood up and said, "If I ever hear my best friend say something like that again, Bonnie, I won't be at your party or anyone else's. You've got it?" After saying that, Justin took me home. He apologized for a long time, but I knew the guys were partly right. I shouldn't be in their company. I didn't belong there. I said goodbye to my friend and went home. I felt bad. I knew I wouldn't be able to go back to school because there would be rumors and discussions. I was also disgusted to be around these people, and I made an important decision that changed my life in the future. That's what I'm going to tell you about. All night I wondered why I was perceived as a loser. My insecurity was only part of the problem. The other side was my lack of money. I suddenly looked at my family. I have them good, we are happy, but there is a drawback. We were always content with what we have and did not strive for the best. I didn't want that kind of life. The only thing I was good at was writing. I never showed my work to anyone. I only wrote for myself. Last year, I started posting scripts for movies, shows, or reality shows on the platforms. One of the producers noticed me and invited me to his school for free training. I immediately told my folks about it, and do you know what I heard back? "What? Where? Britain? Are you kidding me?" "No, son, you're too young. We can't let you go there. What if it's not the producer? What if you get sold or stolen or worse?" Not everybody gets that opportunity. "You never told me what you write. Maybe you're lying about something too." "Dad, really? I'm serious right now. What if something happens? We don't have the money to pay for the ticket and lodging. They'll pay for everything. They just need my brains." "What other organs did they ask for instead?" "Mum, don't yell at your mother. We're against it. That's final. When you grow up, you can do what you want, but not now." That was the end. My dreams and goals. I realized that my parents preferred an amoebic life, and that couldn't be changed. But that night, when I realized that even my classmates saw me as an amoeba, it really hurt. What if they were right? What if I wasn't meant to live happily ever after. I texted my producer, Mr. Alfie Jacobs. He was awake and immediately responded. The dialogue was short. Is your offer still on the table? Yes. Do you want the ticket for the day after tomorrow? Tomorrow would be better. I'll send you the info later and I'll pick you up at the airport. I packed my things and took the first flight almost in the morning. I left a note for my parents saying I'm on my way to my dream. Call me in 3 days. Love, Eric. From that moment on, my life got crazy. I had $20, not more than that, in my pocket. A producer met me, checked me into a dorm, wrote me a check for a scholarship, and I started studying right away. Every day I had to get up early, take a shower, have a quick breakfast, and study. The schedule was too busy. I didn't even have time to call my parents. But you know what's fun? People around me are 20 or 30 years older than me, but none of them sugared me like a child. They criticized so that the brains flew in different directions. We passed every word in the scripts. I wrote the same work 600 times and killed for months, but the skill was honed. And I was glad of that. Sometimes the advice was asked of me too. That was the ultimate peak of enjoyment, because then I knew I was a force to be reckoned with. It was hard, painstaking work, not accepting the words I can't, I don't want to. I had to, and that's that. I dreamed my scripts. I woke up in a cold sweat the night before the deadline, slept little, ate on the go, and went crazy. Got very fat, grew a moustache, but you know, it made me look even more mature and solid. 7 months after I arrived, the first script was finished. I proudly handed it to my boss and went to a cute sidewalk cafe on the street for a leisurely cup of coffee. It was then that I called my mother. When she heard that I was drinking coffee, all she said was, "It's not good for me." Mum didn't change. I apologized for what I had done, but in doing so, I got my first fee and sent most of it to her and to father. Only then, finally, did they stop calling me unfit for life. I dropped out of school, as you can see. I wrote Justin occasionally, just telling him I was fine, but not telling him where I was and what I was doing. 3 years later, he wrote that my classmates were going to get together to celebrate our graduation anniversary. Wow, I missed graduation and have no regrets. I just found out the date and the location and took a week off work and went to my hometown. My parents were shocked by my arrival and I showered them with gifts. With the money I had been sending them regularly over the years, they had done some fancy repairs. I rented myself the most expensive car and came to the meeting. They didn't recognize me right away. Only Justin got up from his seat and was like, "Eric, buddy!" Then the same Bonnie came running up when she saw the car. I felt that buzz, the attention from the people who were mixing me up with the dirt. But you know, above all, I was glad that I proved who I was, not to them, but myself. My classmates were asking me about my work all night. And when they heard that I was a screenwriter, Bonnie immediately asked me to make her the lead in some movie or TV show. And I already did. Yeah? Oh, let me see. I'm so interested. Okay, I'll send a link to the chat room. I wrote a short video about people with money and a total lack of respect for others. Their lives flowed beautifully, but not happy because their parents and money decided everything for them. The reaction was divine. I think they got my hint. The only positive character was Justin. Only he laughed. And then we got in my car and drove around town. So that's what I'm getting at, guys. Don't be afraid to run to your dreams. Don't expect them to come true whilst you're sitting up straight. Dreams love it when you're working. Also, don't underestimate people, or in general, give credit to anyone. Usually, we never guess, even in movies.
Hello, everyone. My name is Esther. I have a few questions for you. Who is your idol? Who are you proud of? For many of us, of course, the idols are our parents. So were mine. Until I found out a terrible secret about them. I still can't believe they would do such a thing. I was always proud of my parents. It would seem that I had never met such worthy, wise people. I saw in them a constant kindness, and I wanted to be the same. I always tried to do my best at school, behave properly, copy my dad's manners, and think like my mom. I wanted to become the same as my parents in the future, but sometimes we make mistakes. We only see the surface. The more I learned about them, the more I lost respect for them. I was in the 8th grade. As a class, we decided to collect things for the children who had been abandoned by their parents in orphanages. I was taught from childhood to be kind, and I without doubt bought a lot of new things and collected all my childhood toys and books. we decided to not go to an ordinary orphanage, but to the children with disabilities. Over dinner, I told my parents that I was going to the orphanage tomorrow. I've always felt sorry for orphan children, not exactly disabled ones. I believe that childhood is a period when the personality is laid, the worldview is formed, vitality, purposefulness. These qualities do not develop spontaneously, but are formed with full-fledged parental love. I believe that these children not only suffered psychological and physical trauma at birth, but they also have to survive and cope alone. We never discussed this with our parents, and I shared the news with them over dinner. I remember that my father got up and went to his room, and my mother's eyes started to water. I never understood what happened then. The next morning, I decided to apologize and said that I was proud of my parents and I was sure that they would never do that. We went with the class to an orphanage. I was glad that I had good-natured classmates. We collected a lot of toys, food, and clothing. We planned to stay until the evening because we had prepared a performance for them. First, the children greeted us, prepared dances, songs, scenes of famous fairy tales. It was very fun. They are so talented. Then we showed our performance, and then there was interaction. No one was bored. The final conclusion was their performances with life stories. Everyone had their own story. One was left by their parents in their home, the other after 3 years of trying to overcome a disease. The other's parents took away their parental rights, and there were a lot of such stories. Every story made me cry. These life stories affected me very much, and different feelings arose. Feelings of guilt, ingratitude, and resentment. The last speaker was a girl, who reminded me very much of my mother in childhood, which I saw in a photo. I don't know why, but at that moment I was very affected by her appearance, and the story made me ask her questions. Her name is Sarah, older than me by 4 years. She was predicted to have cerebral palsy. She was injured during childbirth. I do not know whose fault it was, but at that moment for me, it was her parents who just left her to fend for herself. According to the story, her parents did not immediately abandon her. They left her to her grandmother, but her grandmother died and, at the age of 3, she had to be sent to an orphanage. She remembers them. They visited at first. She told me how she and her grandmother loved each other, remembered her love and warmth, but from others, she never felt anything, unless it caused a feeling of constant pity. In the end, she said that she hopes and believes that her parents will come for her. Maybe they are having difficulties now, and she understands everything. Her grandmother gave her a picture of her parents before she died, and she keeps it by her heart. I really wanted to see it, and even more, I wanted to talk to her, as if I had found a soulmate in her. But the time had come to distribute the collected things and go home, and so I didn't have time. I arrived home very depressed, without mood. My soul was empty. I didn't sleep all night. The stories of all the orphans' lives affected me very much. I especially couldn't forget this girl, who was left by her parents after her grandmother's death. After waiting for dawn, I ran back to the orphanage. I needed to talk to her, to calm down. I wanted to be her friend and help her in any way I could. When I arrived, they had finished breakfast. The teachers recognized me and gave me a chance to talk to her alone. I don't know how many hours we talked. The words didn't end, and I saw myself in her more and more, and she recognized herself in me. It was as if we had known each other since birth. We started telling our secrets, and there was complete trust. I told her about my parents and how proud I was of them. After that, I asked to see a picture of her parents, because she said it was the only thing that remained of them. She kept the photo in her diary, where she wrote letters to her parents every day. I was shocked by what I saw, because they were my parents. My hands started to shake, and the photo was on the floor in a split second. Now images of my grandmother taking care of her played through my mind, and I began to understand why my parents had reacted so strangely, why she had affected me. I was too shocked to say a single word. I went home in silence and in a terrible state. I hoped that my parents would calm me down and say that there was a misunderstanding, that she's not my sister, and the picture isn't of my parents. On the way home, I wrote that we were going to have a serious conversation and asked them to get ready. Mom was home, and Dad had to leave work early. I remember that day very well, the tension in the room. Unfortunately, as much as I don't want to think bad things about my parents, Sarah was my own sister. My mother did not manage to share much with me, But my father told me how hard it was for them to accept such a burden. They were afraid and are still afraid. I found out that they often visited the orphanage where Sarah is located and sponsored, but Sarah didn't know about it. My parents would have told me sooner or later, because you can't hide a secret like that. I admitted that I was disappointed in them, felt lonely, and in my heart doubted their love. I got depressed and didn't talk to them for a week. I was looking for a solution. I had 2 conditions. Either I go to an orphanage until I come of age, or Sarah will live with us and we will give her a full life. One day, my parents called me and offered to pick up Sarah themselves, and we had a long conversation. They repented, saying that this was the biggest mistake that they had made in their lives. Since then, Sarah and I are the closest sisters. I love her with all my heart. My parents and Sarah also quickly found a common language. I am glad that my parents corrected their mistake, because the child is not to blame for anything.